Welcome back to more reading of The Hobbit, Part 20. They thanked him, of course, with many bows and sweeping of their hoods, and with many, "At your service, O master of the wide wooden halls," but their spirits sank as he gave grave words, and they all felt that the adventure was far more dangerous than they had thought, while at the same time, even if they passed all the perils of the road, the dragon was waiting at the end. All that morning they were busy with preparations. Soon after midday they ate with Bjorn for the last time, and after the meal they mounted the steeds he was lending them, and bidding them with many farewells, they rode off through the gate at a good pace. As soon as they had left his high hedges at the east of his fenced lands, they turned north, and they bore to the northwest. By his advice, they were no longer making for the main forest road to the south of the land. Had they followed the pass, their path would have led them down a stream from the mountains that joined the great river miles south of the Kerach. At that point there was a deep ford which they might have passed, if they had still had their ponies, and beyond that track led the skirts of the wood and to the entrance of the old forest road. But Bjorn had warned them that it was now often used by goblins, while the forest road itself, he had heard, was overgrown and disused at the eastern end and led to impassable marshes, where the paths had long been lost. Its eastern opening had always been far to the south of the lonely mountain, and would have left them still with a long and difficult northward march when they got to the north side. North of the Kerach, at the edge of Mirkwood, drew closer to the borders of the great river, and through here the mountains too drew down nearer. Bjorn advised them to take this way, for at the place a few days' ride due north of the Kerach was the gate of a little-known pathway through Mirkwood, and led almost straight toward the lonely mountain. "The goblins," Bjorn had said, "will not dare to cross the great river for 100 miles north of the Kerach, nor come near my house. It is well protected at night, but I should ride fast, or if they make their raid soon, they will cross the river to the south and will scour all the edge of the forest so as to cut you off. And the wargs run swifter than ponies. Still, you are safer going north, even though you may seem to going back nearer to their strongholds, for it is what they will least expect, and they will have a longer ride to catch you. Be off now, as quick as you may." That is why they are now riding in silence, galloping whenever the ground is grassy and smooth, with the mountains dark on their left, and in the distance the line of the river, with the trees drawing ever closer. The sun had only just started to turn west when they started, and till the evening it lay golden on the land about them. It was difficult to think of pursuing goblins behind, and when they had put many miles between them and Bjorn's house, they began to talk and to sing again, and to forget the dark forest path that lay in front. But in the evening, when the dusk came on and the peaks of the mountains glowered, again the sunset, they made camp and set a guard, and mostly they slept and slept uneasily with dreams in which they came the howl of hunting wolves and the cries of goblins. Still, the next morning dawned bright and fair again, and there was an autumn-like mist white upon the ground, and the air was chill. But soon the sun rose red in the east, and the mists vanished, and while the shadows were still long, they were far off again. So they rode now for 2 more days, and all the while they saw nothing save grass and flowers and birds and scattered trees, and occasionally saw small herds of red deer browsing or sitting at noon in the shade. Sometimes Bilbo saw the horns of the harts sticking out of the long grass, and at first he thought they were dead branches of trees. That third evening that they were so eager to press on, for Bjorn had said that they should reach the forest gate early on the fourth day, and they rode still forward after dusk, and into the night and beneath the moon. As the light faded, Bilbo thought he saw, away to the right or to the left, the shadowy form of a great bear, prowling along in the same direction. But if he dared to mention it to Gandalf, the wizard only said, "Hush! Take no notice." Next day they started before dawn, though their night had been short. As soon as it was light, they could see the forest coming, as it were, to meet them, or waiting for them like a black and frowning wall before them. Birds began to sing less. There were no more deer. Not even rabbits were to be seen. By afternoon they had reached the eaves of Mirkwood, and were resting almost beneath the great overhanging boughs of its outer trees. Their trunks were huge and gnarled, their branches twisted. Their leaves were dark and long. Ivy grew on them and trailed along the ground. "Well, here is Mirkwood," said Gandalf, "the greatest of the forests of the northern world. I hope you like the look of it. Now I must send back these excellent ponies you have borrowed." The dwarves were inclined to grumble at this, but the wizard told them not to be fools. "Bjorn is not so far off as you like to think. You had better keep your promises anyway, for he is a bad enemy. Mr. Baggins' eyes are sharper than yours. If you have not seen each night after the great bear going along us, or sitting far off in the moon watching our camps, not only to guard you and to guide you, but also to keep an eye on his ponies too. Bjorn may be your friend, but he loves his animals as his children. You do not guess what kindness he has shown you in letting the dwarves ride them so far and so fast, nor what would happen to you if you tried to take them into the forest." "What about you, horse, then?" said Thorin. "You don't mention sending that back." "I don't, because I'm not sending it." "What about your promise, then?" "I will be looking after that. I am not sending the horse back. I am riding it." Then they knew that Gandalf was going to leave them at the very edge of Mirkwood, and they were in despair. But nothing they could say would change his mind. "Now we had this all out before, and when we landed on the Carrock," he said. "It's no use arguing. I have, as I've told you, some pressing business away south, and I am already late through bothering with you people. We may meet again before it is all over. Then, of course, we may not. That depends on your luck and your courage and your sense. I am sending Mr. Baggins with you. I have told you before, there is more about him than you guess. You will find out before long. So cheer up, Bilbo. Don't look so glum. Cheer up, Thorin and company. This is your expedition, after all. Think of the treasure at the end, and forget the forest and the dragons at any rate until tomorrow morning." When tomorrow morning came, he said the same. So there was nothing left to do but fill their water skins at the clear spring they found close to the forest gate and unpack the ponies. They distributed the packages fairly as they could, though Bilbo thought his was a lot more wearisomely heavy, and did not like the idea of trudging for miles and miles with it on his back. "Don't you worry," said Thorin. "It will get lighter all too soon. Before long I expect we will all wish our packs heavier when the food begins to run short." Then at last they said goodbye to the ponies, and turned their heads for home. Off they trotted gaily, seemingly very glad to put their tails towards the shadow of Mirkwood. As they went away, Bilbo could have sworn that a thing like a bear left a shadow of the trees and shambled off quickly after them. Now Gandalf, too, said farewell. Bilbo sat on the ground, feeling very unhappy, and wishing he was beside the wizard on his tall horse. He had gone just inside the forest after breakfast, a very poor one, and it seemed as dark there in the morning as at night, and very secret. A sort of watching and awaiting and feeling, he said to himself. "Goodbye," said Gandalf to Thorin, "and goodbye to you all, and goodbye. Straight through the forest is your way now. Don't stray off the track. If you do, it's 1,000 to 1 you will ever find your way and never get out of Mirkwood. And then I don't suppose I, or anyone else, will see you again." "Do we really have to go through?" groaned the hobbit. "Yes, you do," said the wizard. "If you want to get to the other side, you must either go through or give up your quest. And I'm not going to allow you to back out now, Mr. Baggins. I'm ashamed of you for thinking it. You have got to look after all these dwarves for me," he laughed. "No, no," said Bilbo. "I didn't mean that. I meant, is there no way round?" "There is, if you want to go 200 miles or so out of your way to the north, and twice that to the south. But you wouldn't be safe path then. There is no safe path in this part of the world. Remember, you are at the edge of the wild now, and in all sorts of fun wherever you go. Before you could get round to the Mirkwood in the north, you would be right along the slopes of the Grey Mountains, and those are simply stiff with goblins, hobgoblins, and orcs of the worst description. Before you could get round to the south, you would be in the lands of the necromancer. And even you, Bilbo, won't need me to tell you tales of that black sorcerer. I don't advise you to go anywhere near the places overlooked by his dark tower. Stick to the forest track, keep your spirits up, and hope for the best. And with a tremendous slice of luck, you may come out the one day to see the long marshes lying below you, and beyond them, high in the east, the lonely mountains where dear old Smog lives, though I hope he is not expecting you." "Very comforting you are, to be sure," growled Thorin. "Goodbye. If you won't come with us, you had better get off without more talk." "Goodbye, then, and really goodbye," said Gandalf as he turned his horse and rode down into the west. But he could not resist his temptations to have the last word. Before he quite passed out of hearing, he turned and his hands to his mouth, and he called to them, and they heard it come faintly, "Goodbye! Be good! Take care of yourselves, and don't leave the path!" Then he galloped away, and soon was lost to sight. "Oh, goodbye and go away," grunted the dwarves, all the more angry, because they really were filled with dismay at losing him. Now began the most dangerous part of all the journey, and they each of them shouldered a heavy pack and the water skin, which each of them would share, and turned from the light, and lay on the lands outside, and plunged into the forest. And if you want to cover the next chapter, we'll do that in the next installment in 21. Thank you for watching Role Play Riot.